Well, after playing through the first, it was pretty obvious that I was going to do the second. Bioshock 2 was created by 2K Games and was released in 2010 as a direct follow-up to the first game. The game was released to relatively strong reviews in 2010 with a Metacritic aggregate score of 88 out of 100. Bioshock 2 was advertised as improving many of the complaints of the first game, as well as expanding on new gameplay mechanics. It also included a multiplayer, which I remember was played by essentially nobody even at release, so we're going to ignore that here. So I actually bought this game at release. I probably even pre-ordered it for the Xbox 360 to be honest, and I can't remember it leaving a strong impression on me. I don't remember any of the story, while I could probably have told you all of the major plot twists of the first game prior to replaying it. I'll be coming in right off of the playthrough of the first game, so there'll be some direct comparisons here between the two. Just like in the first game, I'll be using the 2016 Bioshock 2 Remastered Edition for the PC on this playthrough, and I'll be going through step by step of the story, so here's your spoiler warning. Jumping in, the opening cutscene shows our character named Delta as a big daddy patrolling Rapture with our little sister named Eleanor. Eleanor is attacked by some splicers looking for Adam, I guess, and Delta does what big daddies do best. He beats the shit out of them. However, right before we can drill through the skull of the last splicer, he tosses a plasmid at us that completely controls big daddies apparently, so we're incapacitated. While we're stuck and able to move, a woman shows up and takes Eleanor away. But she also uses this opportunity to control us into taking off our helmet, pulling out a pistol, and shooting ourselves in the head. 10 years pass, and we wake up on the streets of Rapture and are given control of our character. Right off the bat, we've got a few new toys that weren't around in the first game. As a big daddy, one of my arms is a giant drill that I can use to break shit and presumably smash people. Shortly ahead, we find an Atom station with a free plasmid. For some reason, people in video games have no problem taking strange glowing liquid and injecting it directly into their veins, but either way, this is our first plasmid, and now Delta can control lightning. Using this lightning plasmid, I can restart a nearby generator and get some power in this section running. Doing so has Tenenbaum from the first game call us directly. This is the chick who basically set up and ran the Little Sister program, and apparently she's been looking for us, so our first quest is to meet up with her. A cool thing that the game throws at us here is a Big Daddy, or Rosie, outside of a window underwater. Apparently these big lumps are in charge of keeping the city from being destroyed by the ocean, so they're fixing cracks and wells and stuff. It's a cool thing that wasn't answered in the first game, who's maintaining this dystopian hellhole, and I'm glad that the game tries to expand upon that right away. Just like in the first game, the HUD has a big quest arrow at the top of the screen, so figuring out where I need to go is really a breeze. Over the city's PA system, Delta hears a message from Lamb, who apparently runs the city, or at least this section of it now. I imagine after the events of the first game with Ryan and Fontaine out of the picture, there's probably a bit of a power vacuum, and I'm sure we'll hear more about this Lamb chick soon enough. Our first projectile this time around is a rivet gun, not the revolver, which is actually pretty cool considering that we're a big daddy. Moving forward, we spot a nice little sister, but upon getting to her, Delta's attacked by this giant female big daddy looking thing. It's super fast creature in a dive suit, and apparently it's called a big sister, and this is just about completely fucked me up before it ran off. For some reason, the smart thing to do is to chase after this thing, I guess. Apparently, in an attempt to stop us, she smashes a giant glass window and submerges the entire area. So now we're moving underwater. This little underwater section does give us some nice views, but quickly we make it into an airlock. Through the airlock, the game throws a new gameplay mechanic at us. This time around, there's a different kind of hacking. I can shoot remote hacking tools at stuff, and instead of the old water puzzle, I just have to hit F when the meter goes green. It's fairly easy, and it takes a lot less time than the old water puzzle. Delta makes it to the train station, and there Lamb takes over a bunch of TV sets and talks directly to us. Apparently she's the one that had us shoot ourselves 10 years ago, and for some reason she still wants to finish the job. So she sends a bunch of splicers to firebomb our guy. The floor breaks, and once again Delta is thrown into the sea. Once I make it back inside, somehow I get a mental image of an adult Eleanor telling me to take a plasmid in front of me. This one contains telekinesis, so I can move shit with my mind. I'm not entirely sure what the hell this stuff with Eleanor is, but oh well, I think we'll find out. Reaching a major elevator, Tenenbaum drops some info on me. Apparently big daddies like Delta are bonded to a little sister, and if we're apart for too long, their body begins to shut down. My little sister, Eleanor, is actually the biological daughter of Lamb, and apparently that's why this whole thing is so messy. Finally, Delta makes it to the train section where Tenenbaum is, and apparently she's pretty remorseful about her part in the Little Sister program, and she's trying to help save them all. Of course, at this time, Lamb hijacks the station's intercom and says that I'm the devil, and urges the Splicers of Rapture to take care of me. After fending off a few waves, I get a call from a guy named Sinclair. This guy basically tells me that he has an interest in the location where Eleanor is being held, and he's willing to help me. Jumping on the train, Delta hits the switch, and he's on his way to Ryan Amusements. Of course, the train gets stopped by a wall of ice, and the only way to remove it is with a plasmid that can control fire. Fortuitously, the amusement park right by me actually sells one that does just that. How convenient. On the way, I find a familiar weapon upgrade station, so this little mechanic has made its way into Bioshock. I still love the way that once you upgrade a weapon, it changes the look of it. I really love this. Awesome. Now the game throws a bit of a strange juxtaposition at me. In order to get new plasmids, I have to use Adam, which just like in the first game means I have to kill a big daddy and then harvest or release a little sister. However, since I am a big daddy, I'm not harvesting or releasing the little girls, I'm instead adopting them and then leading them around to harvest Adam from random corpses. It fits with my character and adds an interesting change from the first game. Unfortunately, it's not any random body, but specific ones that are already set in the game. Dropping her down, a bunch of splicers are attracted, and they attack you. Basically, it starts a defend event with a gauntlet of enemies, and I hate this in video games. They had this at the end of the first game, and it was one of the worst mechanics of the whole game. Anyway, doing this dance with two different bodies, Delta takes his little sister to a vent, and at this point we have to do the same choice, rescue or harvest her. Harvesting her makes no sense for Big Daddy, and I usually go with the evil option, but this doesn't really make sense for this character. So instead, I'm going to rescue them. I feel it keeps more with being Delta and being a Big Daddy. Thankfully, releasing her gives me just enough Adam to buy my incinerator plasmid so I can get the train to move forward. I find a vending machine, and now I'm basically an X-Man. Unfortunately, it also triggers another fight with a big sister who is freaking ridiculously stronger than I. This particular encounter actually smoked me a couple of times, but when I die I end up just reviving in a Vita chamber. So dying still has no consequences in this game. I can come back and continue the fight with nothing really happening. Finally, she's dead. Delta can melt the ice wall blocking the train and get the train moving again. Sinclair joins us on the train, and away we go to Paupers Drop. As soon as this train stops in Paupers Drop, Lamb puts a citywide stop on all train activity. So we're effectively stuck here. Sinclair decides that the only way to get ourselves moving again is to find the local governor named Grace Holloway and take her key from her. But it's pretty obvious that she's not just going to just give it to us. On the way, there's this giant Hulk-looking guy who is always just out of the distance putting obstacles in our way. Sinclair advises Delta to go snag a research camera so we can figure out what this Hulk dude is all about. As in the first game, if we take pictures of enemies with the research camera, we can learn their weakness and we can increase our damage dealt. The only twist on this camera versus the first game is that this is now a video camera, so I can start recording and then attack to take research videos. Delta manages to get a video of the Hulk guy, and in addition to me learning about his weaknesses, the game also gives me a new move. I can now charge forward with my drill. This allows me to smash through barriers, which is kind of sweet. Occasionally, after I return a little sister to the wall, the game music changes and I'm informed that a big sister is on the way. Basically, you have to run to get to a good defendable area and get ready to fight a big-ass fight. It's kind of a cool mechanic that ups the oh shit level, but as long as I don't plan on pulling this all the time, I'm kind of liking it. In the apartments where I'm supposed to find Gracie, the power is apparently out because it's pitch black. But I guess Delta has a flashlight? I'm not really sure why I can't toggle this on my own for the rest of the extremely dark game. That would really be pretty useful. In this area, there's a bunch of these glowing blue butterflies that don't really seem to do anything, but they actually look pretty cool in the low light. Gracie starts spewing out some crap on the radio. There's apparently some race thing going on in Rapture, or at least there was before she joined up with Lamb. I don't know. In her apartment, there's a hidden door behind her nasty-ass closet. Seriously, lady, get some paint or something. I don't really understand why these people are living in complete trash. Apparently, Gracie here hates Delta because when I was a big daddy, she tried to go up to Eleanor and I broke her jaw. But, I was in big daddy mode, so I guess it wasn't really my fault or something. I'm basically given the ability to kill her or spare her, and based on what I've seen so far, she really isn't a bad lady. So I'm going to spare her, which is crazy. I'm usually a total asshat in video games, picking the most evil choice, but on this playthrough, I'm trying to play through the mind of my character. So I'm going to spare her. Grabbing her keycard before I leave the door. Apparently Gracie has a change of heart about me because I spared her, and she decides to send a few robots to help me. Not much help, maybe I should have shot her, but maybe I'll get some more help from her as the story progresses. Back on the train, Delta uses Gracie's key to enter Siren Alley. As the train is traveling through an underwater track, a new lovely gentleman named Father Wales jumps on the radio and introduces himself, basically completely followed by shooting a missile at the train. And we're on to another water sequence. Sinclair, who is also on the train, lets us know that he's in Dionysus, or maybe it's Dionysus Park, but unfortunately, due to the train blow-up, the entrances are all sealed, I guess to prevent water leaks. So my only course of action is to get to a pumping station and remove all the water. Moving along the sea floor, I find a whole bunch of these little slugs that are filled with Adam. So I guess that comes from the sea floor, because I can see a bunch of them out here underwater and pick them up and get 10 Adam a pop. Pretty weird. Making it to the pump area, my good deeds are finally paying off. I rescue another little sister, and the girls apparently band together to give me a present. So I guess there is some good to be said for not being a total ass in these games. A little up ahead, there's a power shutoff, and Delta is forced to hunker down and defend the area until the power can get back on and open the door. I absolutely hate these defend area things. It's not that fun to throw endless waves of enemies at me under a timer, but this game seems to love doing that. Finally, I make it to Father Wales' church, and it turns out he's actually just a strong version of a spider slicer. Oh well. Either way, enough shots and he's down, and it's not really a very interesting fight. But right behind him are the pumps, and turning them on causes Lamb to flip her shit, and I guess somehow she remotely is able to destroy the whole area. So water comes shooting in, but I'm really not sure how that concerns me. As a big daddy, Delta can breathe underwater, so I guess let it come? Either way, everyone is dead, apparently just to prove a point to me. I don't really get Lamb's reasoning. She's not really an intelligent antagonist, and I can't really say that I'm very compelled to care about her as a bad guy at all. But maybe that'll get more interesting as the game progresses.
Look, Delta.
Another short underwater scene later, Delta finds himself in Dionysus Park. And this area is actually pretty cool aesthetically. It's definitely creepy, and apparently at one point it was all underwater, so the whole area has a thick layer of coral and mud, presumably from that time. Heading through the area, Delta meets a man named Stanley Poole in the train station. Poole has locked down the train station unless we help him. His request is simple, it's to take care of the little sisters in the area. Either killing or saving them, I guess. It's kind of par for these games, really. A door I need to get to is locked or blocked, and I either need to do a request for somebody or find a key card. Well, I guess the hunt for the little sisters begins now. The game takes a nice turn right now, and it takes us off the rails. Meaning that the handy compass on our screen goes away, and we have to go find the little sisters that Poole wants us to get rid of by ourselves. They are pretty easy to find, but unfortunately since I'm saving the little shits, I actually have to take them each to 2 dead bodies and protect them while they harvest the Adam. It's getting really annoying, and it's a mechanic I could really live without right now. It just honestly feels like every piece of this is just filler.
Is the dream.
So as I'm returning these little sisters, Eleanor contacts me and tells me that the guy who turned her into a little sister is actually this Stanley Poole guy. I'll have to kill him when the game gives me a chance, I guess. So basically, what we learn now is that Stanley gave Eleanor to the little sister program, and he's trying to hide from Lamb. But Lamb jumps on the radio and says she already knew this, and so she lets us know that Stanley was the guy that gave Delta away to becoming a big daddy. So basically, this guy really has to die at this point. He's the one who kidnapped Eleanor, and he's the one that turned me into a big daddy. Taking care of this guy is pretty easy. I just have to use my giant drill into his face. After killing Fuckface, Delta heads into Fontaine Futuristics. Sinclair says that Eleanor is hidden at the very bottom of the area. Heading forward, I find an audio log from a guy named Gil Alexander, and Fontaine advises me to find more of them because they might help me figure out the story between myself and Eleanor. A very pointless underwater sequence later, Delta finds himself in a lab area of Fontaine Futuristics. Some guy named Alex the Great is out of his fucking mind and is tweaking out, thinking I'm here to steal stuff. Pretty sure Alex the Great is actually Gil Alexander, but he's gone nuts. Getting just past the entrance, Delta gets a pre-recorded message from Gil Alexander. Apparently this guy jacked himself up on Adam and is completely out of his mind. So we're going to have to get through all of these defenses and stuff he's set up while he's on all of his drugs. His recording asks us to please find him and kill him. And you know what? I'll probably oblige him. Alex's little robot self is really out of his mind, and he does this little fun singing number right here. Gil has me running all over trying to find some crap he installed over the bot stations, which is another one of those off-rails things, and this one actually kind of sucks. This game is not really making me enjoy these kind of quests. It's literally pick up little sister, take her to 2 bodies, return them to the wall opening, find 2 more sisters, then search for the quest spots without any real idea of where to go. Look, 2K, this isn't the great way to make a good game. I'm not exploring, I'm just kind of wandering around the area. After enough aimless running around, I deactivate all of the stupid bot things and I can get into the room that grants me access to the plasmid lab. Another sober-sounding Alexander Gale pleads with me to kill him in his current state, and into the water we go to find him. This final area is completely dark, and once I turn on the lights, Delta sees a giant-ass tank where apparently Gil is living his best life. The story here is I have to fetch 4 atom-infused plants or something to kill Gil, while he throws a bunch of prototype Big Daddies at me, and it's obnoxious. All of the fetched plants found, I put them in a machine, and guess what? Alex sends another big wave of alpha Big Daddies at me. Yay. I could really do without this constant fighting off hordes. It's really overdone at this point in the game, and I'm getting tired of it. Thankfully, after creating Gil's key, I get to murder him with a big jolt of electricity. So yeah, see ya bitch, this was an easy one to decide. I really have no interest in letting this psychopath live. Taking our boy Gil's key, Delta is able to head into the secret land of Persephone. The first views of Persephone are really, really cool. Delta is on this long-ass hallway with open windows looking into weird parts of the ocean. It's very, very cool, and honestly, I'd love to see something like this in real life or in future games. Just ahead of us, there's a little quarantined area inside of Persephone with a woman sleeping. Sinclair calls us and says that that's Eleanor, and we have to break the controls to rescue her, which triggers 2 big sisters to attack us, which is obviously fair, right? We have to kill 2 of these things now. I dispatch these big sisters, and now I'm waiting for the quarantine door to open, which for some reason Lamb decides that she's going to kill the comatose Eleanor so that I go into a coma. Okay, this story is just getting dumb. So yeah, Lamb is trying to kill her own kid that she's projected forever to somehow kill me or something. Delta wakes up tied to a table, and a little sister walks up and stabs me with her syringe, which turns me into a little sister now. What the fuck? So I'm playing as little sister with the syringe and stuff apparently now. God, this is so stupid. So me as a little sister goes into a vent, and then I can get into another room, and then doing this a second time puts me in Lamb's office. Here I find a big cell block door controls, and Eleanor contacts me and says that she has to become a big sister. So I have to find her the pieces of a big sister suit to turn her into something that can get us all out of here, which is dumb. What is interesting though is as I move through the area, it becomes apparent that our little sister's mind sees everything as beautiful and rosy, even when it's all dark and gloomy. Like this beautiful gown here is really just the big sister dive suit. It's kind of cool. Once we get the pieces for the suit and give them to Eleanor, she's now a big sister, and she gives me a plasmid to call her right away and she can fight on my side. Or, you know, she could just stick around and help me. Why do I need to use some magical plasmid to get her to stick around? I get it, it's because of the game mechanics, but it kind of is stupid. Why doesn't she just fight with us? Eleanor and I suit up, and now we head into Inner Persephone to take care of Mommy Lamb. For some reason, the city has a giant destruction plan to push the entire city into a miles-deep ocean trench or something, because obviously there needs to be a self-destruct on the entire city of Rapture. Did this game have actual writers that thought this was cool? Like, what? Oh, and one more thing. As I'm trying to escape, just like the first game, I'm having some sort of convulsions. So I have to escape, or apparently I'm going to die. We also learned that Sinclair is also a Big Daddy, apparently, by the way. It's really an anticlimactic reveal. He's basically just another enemy I have to kill, and he goes down super easily. The last thing that we need to do is get to one of the lifeboats and try and get the hell out of here. But to do so, we're going to need an army of little sisters, apparently, to heat up water or something. To get all of these little sisters, the game plunges Delta into different spots in the infirmary. Here we have to go clear out waves and waves of splicers before we can signal Eleanor to do the thing, I guess. It's more wave crap, it's just another garbage mechanic, and it's really not interesting, and I'm really waiting for this game just to end at this point. This is when Lamb gives us the giant moral quandary of this game, and that's by freeing the little sisters and giving them a mind of their own, I'm actually damning them to the hell of life. I mean, really, that's the aha moment. That's the follow-up to the original Bioshock. This is the story that's supposed to be the next best thing to Would You Rather. I'm freeing little sisters so they have to live a normal life. So I get Eleanor and the magical little sisters to boil away the water so that we can get to the lifeboat. At this point, apparently, Lamb goes nuts, and then I have another Gauntlet Defend quest. But at this point, I can get the lifeboat up and make my escape. But running away, Eleanor and I encounter a bunch of explosives that go off. But somehow we're standing next to the explosives going off, and Eleanor, Lamb, and Delta all somehow survive and make it to the submarine. I'm not entirely sure why there was a sequence of us running into explosives, only to 2 seconds later show us all happy on the submarine. I don't know. The story here makes no sense. Maybe I missed something, but what the hell did I just watch? My good ending is Eleanor saving her mom and then sucking all of the atom out of me for some reason. I guess so that I can live with her in her mind forever, but yeah. The ending of this game is literally an incoherent mess. An absolute complete piece of shit. It's over, and I'm a little curious about maybe some of the other endings were interesting, but this was just crap. I'm really not interested. Anyway, let's talk a little bit more about this game. Well, for starters, let's talk about sound. Just like the first game, I have no complaints with the sound here. There's little segments with some old-timey music, which is nice. The guns sound great. The plasmids look and sound cool. And the sound of those big daddies slowly walking around, stomping in the hallways is always awesome. Sound is great here. But now let's talk about gameplay. So, the one thing about gameplay is they did try hard to make some of the game mechanics better than the first game. The hacking has been removed from that annoying, tedious water puzzle thing, and now you just kind of have to hit F as it's moving. It's more interesting, it's faster, and it's less annoying. The FPS of this game seems fine. You know, it's just a 2010 version of an FPS. You run around, shoot stuff, pick up more guns. You can upgrade them, you can use different types of ammunition. That part's all fine too. The plasmids honestly don't seem as interesting this time around though, to be honest. It's basically the same thing we saw in the first game, pretty much the exact same plasmids. I'm not sure if there's any new ones, and I tend to just ended up shocking them most of the time. I didn't really try and experiment with different plasmids because I've seen them all before. There's nothing really interesting. But the big elephant in the room from a gameplay perspective is really the quests. I mean, I'm really not enjoying the constant having to defend one certain area from waves and waves of enemies. That's basically this entire game. Since there's so much emphasis on you protecting the little sisters, you're basically constantly doing that horrible part from the first game of defending her while she stabs 2 dead bodies for a couple minutes. That's the entire game. There's a couple sections where you have to go collect other items or something, but over and over again, you're constantly just doing this stupid defend hordes of enemies nonsense. And I hate it. It's really bad. It's not fun. It really just shouldn't have been in this game at all. Another point worth noting at this point is this game only took me 6.3 hours to finish. You know, if I paid $60, which I did at one point for this game, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be very pleased with the lack of investment. 6.3 hours for a single player game is really unacceptable, especially from a AAA developer. There's not much here. There's a multiplayer attached to this game that nobody played, but for 6.3 hours, no, not good. Now let's talk about the big elephant in the room here, and that's the story. This game really tries to make me want to care about my choices in the game, but the characters here are so shitty, it's really hard for me to give a fuck about what I do. None of them really offer me any real reason to let them live or die, it's just garbage people living in a garbage world. Not to mention, why is Lamb able to just completely control us at the beginning of the game, but she or no one else is able to do it at any other point? It seems kind of like a big plot hole. My biggest complaint, I guess, is that the game doesn't really expand on the original game. It's very much trying to tell a quick story in the same universe, and I would have much had a better experience if instead of it trying to just recreate the things from the first game, if it actually gave us the opportunity to really explore Rapture and come up with some other crazy new idea. Give the player some more control and less on the rails and let us explore this deeply dystopian universe. But instead, it's just really trying to do more of the same, and it does it poorly. If it feels I'm being much harder on this game than the first, well, I am, and I think it's fair. This is a follow-up to one of the most beloved games of the 2000s, and it's really not living up to its predecessor by building upon what made Bioshock so great. It's really just trying to expand on the choices idea to build story, but in reality what this game needed wasn't a choice platform for the story, but to open up the exploration of this crazy-ass dystopia. That's what I wanted coming in, and that's really not what I got. I got to see Rapture again, in albeit a different light, but it's still just more of the same, really in a bad way. It's just more on the rails, in some cases literally, with the trains mind you, and it's just not that great. I didn't need to revisit this, and I really doubt I ever will again. If someone were to ask me what a good dystopian first-person shooter would be, I'll recommend the first, but I'm probably going to tell them don't even bother with the second. I'm kind of dreading going into the third Bioshock game, which I'm going to have to do. And that one I'm going into cold. I've never actually played it. So if you're interested to see what my thoughts are on the third, stick around.